It is hard to time that market. It's about the time you spend into it, the reinvestment of dividends, the dollar cost averaging, as you say. That's where the opportunities and the long-term growth comes into play.
And welcome into the program. This is your game plan for retirement with Northwestern Ohio's resource for a common sense approach to planning for your financial, investment, and retirement future. He is president and founder of McIntire Retirement Services, Chris McIntire. Always a pleasure to see you, Chris. How have you been doing?
I've been doing pretty good, buddy. We're ready for winter to be over. That's for sure. It's been one of those old-fashioned winters when we were kids, and we haven't had one of those in a while.
Yeah. Same kind of thoughts on winter. Haven't seen one like a real winter that's lasted this long for quite some time, and gotten some snow, but mostly just a lot of real cold rain around us. So anyway, hope it gets sunnier and warmer soon, or at least for us, we don't get much snow. I'd like to see a little of that. So anyway, Chris, you've got the new wheels to drive around town in that I've been looking at and envious of.
Yeah, we picked up traded in a pickup truck for a new one here, and we're enjoying that. And got to put some weight in the back end of it to get through the snow, though. Nothing more worthless than a pickup truck with no weight in the back end in snow.
Can get some traction that way.
Amen. Yeah, we put about 500 pounds in the back of them typically.
All right. Well, look, today, the subject of the program, the state of the economy and the case for planning. And as I saw this set of notes, like a couple things came to mind, Chris, is that it seems like our human nature is adverse to wanting to plan. Like people know that it's important to plan and they still put it off, right? They let it linger in the back of their mind and then they ignore it. Why would someone turn away from something that they know needs to be done? And then I know it's kind of your ongoing job to remind us that it's important, but why is it that we are adverse and hesitant to taking that step to get going in planning?
Well, there's a lot of human nature in here. Some people want to avoid conflict, so they will avoid it at any cost, even if it's detrimental to themselves. Um, you know, um, there are people who are very good at managing these types of issues, and they know to confront them and get them out of the way. But other people are a little hesitant, and I fit someplace in the middle of all of that, as we all do, right? We're all human nature. We have our strengths and weaknesses. And I look at my parents, and my dad's a really nice guy, didn't like a whole lot of conflict, and I probably follow along with that line as well. Now, as I'm getting a little bit older, I starting to care a little bit less about what people think anymore.
That's also a natural human nature, I think.
Yeah. The filter gets a bigger hole in it typically, but and if you look at some of this, some people are doing some planning on investments and, dollars that are hundreds of thousands of dollars, and that can be very intimidating if you don't do it very often. And, mistakes can be costly, let's be honest. And, like you and I, in our industry, when we talk to people and ask them about making decisions, we kind of have a cliche that a confused mind always says no.
hmm but Chris, you've already hit on a couple things that tell me it's more than just simple procrastination in our busy lives, right? Like human nature, we sort of avoid pain, we avoid conflict, we avoid things that we think are going to be uncomfortable. And I think that is one of the reasons and motivations to put this off. Again, your job consistently is to remind people of why it's important, and then you've gone throughout the course of this program in trying to remind people that you can take the pain out of the process. A meeting with you, a conversation to get the process started, no cost, no obligation. So taking that objection out of the way, it's not going to cost somebody anything. So putting some of the reasons why to procrastinate or put this off out of the conversation hopefully motivates people in any conditions that hey, we do need to get our plan together and let's take that first step, right?
Yeah, without question, Peter. And that's a very good point that you bring up is, you got to take the first step. And my business coach, has a very good mantra that we go by, that it is better to suffer the pain of discipline than the pain of disappointment.
Yeah. Well, Chris, you talked about your own spectrum of procrastination. I know that you personally are one that gets up and works out and does your physical fitness. A lot of people put off that pain and it can cause pain later on in life. There are things that we just should be doing, and planning for our financial future is certainly one of them. And today we're going to talk more about why not only should you be doing it, but why it is an opportune moment in our time, in our market conditions, in our environment for you to take those steps, ladies and gentlemen. And we'll do that again with Chris McIntire. He is president and founder of McIntire Retirement Services. If you would like to get your game plan for retirement put together, if you'd like to start that conversation and have a complimentary review and strategy session, you can visit online at McIntireRetirementServices.com, McIntireRetirementServices.com, or give a call 800-868-1194, 800-868-1194, 800-868-1194. All right, so Chris, we decide, hey, planning is something we want to do. And not just, hey, I've got a 401k, I made my deferrals, I'm putting some money in it, but like really plan on how that's going to work to get us to our financial goals into the future. Is there a best time to get started, or is there a moment where that ship has sailed and it's kind of too late?
Yeah, and we hate to say that, some people start later than others, without a doubt. The earlier you start, the simpler it is. No one's born a millionaire overnight. They put, dollars at work over time. And, whatever you can do certainly helps the situation. And, just putting one foot in front of the other, you don't have to, like Peter talks about, look, I like to work out and go to the gym. Man, I have to convince myself to do that every time I do it. My wife and I are getting ready to go away for a week. I love it because I can work out, a lot easier than having to build it in a busy schedule. So we all deal with making decisions, and most of us spend more time worrying about making a decision than making the decision, getting done with it, and having it out of the way. I mean, we spend far more time procrastinating than what it actually takes to get the specific task accomplished. And so when it comes to the investing side, if you look at the history of the stock market, and just say the S&P 500 to keep things simple here today, if you put money into the S&P 500, if for those that have that kind of risk tolerance, look at what it's done over time. What's the lifetime average of it's what, over 11% a year, maybe even more than that after this last bull market here. That means your money's going to double in about 6 years that you
Yeah.
put into that. And, you're going to have to ride the roller coaster. It has some ups and downs, but, I mean, how do you think you ended up with $500,000 to $1 million in a 401k? You put money in there and just let it do its own thing. And hopefully you didn't, get in there and get so conservative when things were bad that you missed out the opportunities when things are good.
Yeah. Chris, I have to kind of assume you probably meet with, talk with more millionaires than like the average person, right? And I assume again that not all of them are like athletes or influencers or lottery winners. Most of them are regular people who just understood the value of saving and investing and putting away a little bit of every dollar that they made. And they've got this get rich quick scheme that takes 30 to 40 years to come to fruition, but all of a sudden, somewhere along the way in the process, they woke up a millionaire. And then it's, how do we make this last? How do we be efficient? How do we make this as effective as possible? So if there was a best time to get started, right, it was all for all of us sometime in our past, a long, long time ago. If there's a second best day to get started, it is today. And then Chris, not really, I mean, yes, we would have loved to have gotten started earlier, but not really a moment where it's just too late. get started today. And the government actually gives us a lot of opportunity to do some catch up in those final years of our working career. We've got some opportunities built in to make more progress if we do feel behind.
Yes, exactly. And, I'll say, Peter, that the people we work with that have the most amount of money, saved and accumulated were investors, not savers.
Okay.
They were invested in the stock and bond markets for a very long time. They didn't just put it in the savings account or or CD investors. I mean, some of these people made 17, 18% a year, and in a 5% CD, you got 3 years of growth in 1 year. And, that's hard to catch up with for sure.
Well, Chris, let's talk a little bit about that. Why our current economic conditions actually are conducive to putting the plan together. Why we should look around at the environment that we're in now and say, hey, now is as good a time as any, maybe some of the best times that we have had to get that plan put together. And ladies and gentlemen, again, just a note of encouragement, get your plan put together. And Chris McIntire here as your resource to help you in that process, to get the conversation started or to sit down and do a planning review, an investment analysis, get your written game plan for retirement. Give a call, 800-868-1194, 800-868-1194, 800-868-1194. So, Chris, the most successful of your clients, of the people that you talk to, have been investors. Let's look at the tool, the market, the stock market that we are investing in. Right now, fantastic market conditions to bring everything together and get that plan in place. The market has been on a phenomenal run.
Yeah, it sure has, and you even go back to say 2009, just after the financial crisis, the housing crisis there, and
16
look
years
what it
ago, by the way.
yeah, it's hard to believe, isn't it?
Yep.
And look at what the stock market has done since then. I mean, now we have artificial intelligence that's driving another segment of the economy, more of the tech sector is what I mean by that. It's not always the Walmarts of the world. Sometimes there's some outliers and new industries, but being invested in a broad-based portfolio to help you take, advantage of those tough times. And again, when we say broad-based portfolio, people invest in bonds, they invest in real estate, they invest in gold. So that's what we mean when we say diversification. Look, and we're big advocates of having safe money as well, that when your investment portfolio goes down, you can go over and look at plan B and make a withdrawal out of some sort of safe account that you got, whether it's a money market, a CD, some type of fixed or an index annuity, whatever that you have your savings in. I've got some cash in a safety deposit box, and it's like, all right, why do I have it in there? It feels good because I can go put my hands on it, but I'm not making any interest on it. And, I can make $1,000 a year in interest if I could put it in something making 5%. But, there's a peace of mind in knowing that, hey, I got cash close by if we need to get it. And, and I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'm not worried about the government seizing all that stuff. That's ridiculous,
Yeah.
in my opinion. Yeah.
Well, I think that we also have to be cognizant, Chris, if that was to happen to our dollar, that happens to every dollar. So it's not just us that would be hurting. It is the world of hurt that everyone would be in. And being one of the few that has dollars under that set of circumstances. And I could make the same comment about the gold commercials that I hear all the time. Like being one of the ones that has something at that point in time may be as dangerous as it is valuable, in my opinion. But we assume that the world is going to go on, right? That we have to plan for tomorrow. If we planned for the end of the world and then it didn't happen, we could be in as much trouble, if not more, than if we planned for a long future and then kind of catastrophe hit, right?
Yeah, yeah,
You
you're
follow?
absolutely. Yep, yep. Good points there, buddy. And we have to be very rational as we look at things here. And the sky is not falling. The world's not going to end tomorrow. And so many people I have, as the politics have changed here with the new administration coming in, I mean, I have clients that are fearful of this administration. We have clients, the next one could be ecstatic because of this administration. And, and now they're the current administration's going through, and we've got businessmen taking a look at government waste, and I think we are going to be astounded at the waste that we see. And some of that's the nature of a large bureaucracy. So,
Yep.
that gets the government lean and mean. And like Mr. Elon Musk said the other day in a press conference, look, if the government spends less money, that drives inflation down.
Yeah. Well, plus last year, Chris, I think was the first time where we surpassed spending a trillion of our dollars on interest on the debt alone. So if that's going to be the case, we've got to find some places to be more efficient elsewhere, right? And again, with the factors that we're talking about today, making the case that right now is the time to plan. The market has been beneficial, but also thinking about that debt and deficit and spending, the government's going to need to raise money from somewhere as well. Taxes are at a low point right now, also making it an advantageous time to get that plan put together.
Yeah, yeah, without a doubt there, buddy. And, these are opportune times right now. We're probably have an administration that's going to cut some regulation that should certainly help spur business. And I know, if you're not used to some of this, business moves fast. People make decisions quickly in the private sector. The bureaucratic government side of things is, well, let's run this through the World Trade Organization. Let's run this then through the National Institutes of blah, 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 and never get to a decision. That's not how business works. And, I
Yeah,
think,
let's
yeah,
feasibility study, right, Chris? So we run multi-million, tens of millions, hundreds of $1 million feasibility studies on things, and we never actually get them going. We see that around here a lot with kind of the transportation routes that they're planning.
yeah, absolutely. And as they, work and make government, let's face it, businesses have to get leaner and meaner at one point in time because things change. And I think we could make an argument that government needs to go through the same thing. It's our money that they're spending, and if we can make them more efficient, $1 trillion in interest, right? That's what, I don't know what the budget of the Pentagon is, but that's an incredible amount of dollars. That's unsustainable. So, I think as we get through, the first half of this year, some of this dust will certainly settle. And, as like artificial intelligence, the money's being spent to develop the artificial intelligence capabilities. The productivity comes after that, right? Productivity is good. That raises your standard of living and drives inflation down.
Well, the stock market being strong currently, again, a reason why this is an opportune moment to put your plan together, ladies and gentlemen. And Chris McIntire here to help in that effort. As always, reminding us that planning is important, but today talking specifically about why now is such a good time. And if you would like to get that plan put together, pick up the phone and give Chris a call, 800-868-1194, 800-868-1194. Chris, you had a couple items, details on why the strong stock market does make it an advantageous time. Several financial reasons why it makes sense. Maximize gains. You can protect your life savings and continue dollar cost averaging, benefiting from market momentum, preemptively setting yourself up for retirement. I really liked one of these, though, that planning while the market is high is not the same as trying to time the market. You're taking advantage of the time that we are in, not trying to predict or time it into the future. And I think that's an important distinction.
Yeah, it certainly is. It is hard to time that market. It's about the time you spend into it, the reinvestment of dividends, the dollar cost averaging, as you say. That's where the opportunities and the long-term growth comes into play. Now, that doesn't mean that, at the end of the year or something when you're rebalancing and you're looking at your portfolio, like we talked about on several shows at the end of 2024 is, hey, you guys, you did 16, 17% this year. Now's the time. Do you need to put a new roof on the house? We've made the money. You can skim some of the cream off the top, if you will. That's when you do that. You don't do that when the market's down 25%. You do it when it's up 25%,
Yep.
typically.
Yep. Well,
Flexibility.
and indeed, like the old saying in Vegas, right, is play with the house's money or take your winnings as off the table at a certain point in time. We're not gambling here, but the analogy I think still stands that when we are investing, there's a time and a place to take higher risk, and then there's a time and a place to take your earnings off of the table and just kind of regroup and account for where you stand now versus where you stood 10, 15 years ago and make sure that you're planning for the future. So again, an advantageous reason why now is a good time to plan. The stock market is strong. So we won't belabor that point anymore, but I did want to circle back to the tax issue, Chris. We are in a historically low tax environment right now. We talked about the debt, the deficit, the spending. What is your concern that tax policy and legislative risk will have retirees working under different rules in the future than what they saved their money under when they were working? In other words, paying higher taxes than we expected sometime in the future.
Yeah, and now is the time to consider if you're still working, do you make contributions into a Roth IRA versus a traditional IRA or a 401k, if you will, or even the Roth 401k here. Or do you, utilize a strategy to convert IRA dollars at a low tax rate into a Roth IRA that is income tax free? And we speak a lot of this, throughout our shows throughout the course of the year. And with the current administration in place now, I would assume that we're probably have a good opportunity to get our current tax rates extended potentially for up to another 10 years, right? Because they are supposed to end or sunset at the end of 2025. And I believe the administration is working pretty actively to get that tax plan extended. And, you can have this year, if you're a married couple with a standard deduction of about $30,000, you can have $120,000 in income and you're in a 12% tax bracket. That's
Right.
unbelievable.
Yeah, take advantage. If you can get money out of a retirement account and only pay 12%, you should probably pay attention to that opportunity. That is a deal, right, Chris? And I want to get through a couple of these other points, but these are reasons why, ladies and gentlemen, right now is the time to really take account of where you stand and plan for your financial future. Number 3, Chris, is these higher interest rates. We haven't had higher interest rates for all that long. They were very low for what seemed like forever before the current interest rate increases. No promise they'll be around forever, but certainly these higher interest rates make planning for retirement that much easier, correct?
Oh, yeah, they certainly do. It's a lot easier to generate income, off of a CD or a fixed annuity paying 5% than it was when they were paying 1.5 or 2, for example. And heck, we've got annuity rates right now, as high as 6%. So, there is a lot of, because government bond yields have increased, even though the Federal Reserve is cutting rates. That's more on the banking side. The annuity side deals more with the government bond market, and yields have gone up actually. So, we're seeing much better rates in 2-year, 3-year fixed annuities and a 2-year CD, for example. So we've been doing a lot of as CDs come due, looking at repositioning into that. Bonds paying higher interest rates. So certainly easier to generate retirement income now than it was 3-4 years ago, for sure, buddy.
Well, pay attention to that as well, ladies and gentlemen, because while this generation has built more personal wealth than any generation before, there is still more doubt and uncertainty about maintaining standard of living and lifestyle. And that's because that lump sum does not necessarily equate to lasting financial confidence. Income, the missing pensions, have really played a part in our lack of confidence. Now is a great time to set up payouts and income and withdrawals for your retirement. So take a look at that. Interest rates being a big factor, the high account balances, the stock market being another. looking at tax efficiency, yet another reason why right now such a good time to plan. And if you'd like to get that plan put together, give Chris McIntire a call, 800-868-1194. That's 800-868-1194. Now, Chris, I want to talk about why we feel this moment in time, this opportunity may not last forever, as kind of our final reason why now is a good time to plan. We have hit the peak of the baby boomer generation reaching full retirement age. So now and moving forward, more of that generation will be withdrawing from their investments rather than contributing to them. How do those demographics put different pressures on the market?
Well, you could say that as the baby boomers need to generate income out of their IRAs and whatnot that they've saved for their retirement spending dollars, that they need to sell more of those investments to generate that cash flow that goes into their checking account every month. And as more of them hit the sell button, that takes prices down. So that could add to, pressure on the stock market, that there are more sellers than there are buyers at times. It is the price of a stock is determined by the supply and demand on that particular equity, if you will. That's one example.
And we don't know what the future holds, certainly, Chris, but there are some examples in history in other economies. I know that Japan was once considered like the model of economic efficiency back in the late 80s, early 90s. They were going to be the economy that took over the world. And then in 1990, they hit the peak of their baby boom, similar to what we are hitting right now. And then in Japan's stock market for the next 30 years, they were down and flat and really never recovered. Not saying that the American economy is the same as Japan's or that today's environment is the same as the 1990s, but that's an example of where these economic demographic pressures that we're talking about can put strain, stress on the economy and on the market, correct?
Oh yeah, buddy. And like today in the United States, a 10-year government bonds yield is about 4.5% plus or minus, depending on the week. So 4.5%. In Japan for 20 years, those were negative yields. So they were issuing bonds that you were going to lose money on for them to keep your money safe for 20 years. They were in a deflationary cycle. So the demographics can certainly have some concern. Now here in the United States, we have, lots of savers and whatnot. And, I don't know all the demographics in Japan and whatnot, but, the astonishing amount of people in the United States that have inadequate retirement savings would blow your mind, folks.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we do need to get serious. That last fact from Chris McIntire, the high percentage of the American population unprepared for their financial future or even an emergency, is just further credibility and credence to our message today. We need to put more emphasis on planning and preparing, ladies and gentlemen. And now, right now, is a fantastic time to get your plan put together. Whether you are working your way through your career, hoping for retirement into the future, on the cusp of retiring, or even already retired, if you've got a plan and want to review and revise and just make sure every piece is working to its highest effectiveness, or if you'd like to get that plan put together, pick up the phone, give Chris McIntire and McIntire Retirement Services a call. They would love to hear from you, talk with you, help you put that plan together, structure it, make the recommendations on what you should be doing, and then help you implement and monitor that plan over time. So again, you've got a resource. And Chris McIntire is here to help you put the plan together. Give him a call, 800-868-1194, 800-868-1194, 800-868-1194. Chris, always a pleasure every time we get the opportunity to talk and discuss. And I think today, a great message in the program. You're always here to help people plan. But right now, let's not overlook the opportunity that we have to put a good, solid plan together.
Hey, my pleasure, Peter. And, keep a chin up, everybody. Pitchers and catchers for the Indians and the Reds have reported for camp. So spring training can't be much longer here in Ohio. It can't be much longer. Take care, everybody. Be safe.
Tune into Chris McIntire's full radio program and visit McIntireRetirementServices.com for many additional valuable resources, including other great episodes of Game Plan for Retirement with Chris McIntire. Be sure to subscribe.
The content of this radio show is provided for informational purposes only and is not a solicitation or recommendation of any investment strategy. You are encouraged to seek investment, tax, or legal advice from an independent professional advisor. Any investments and/or investment strategies mentioned involve risk, including the possible loss of principal. Advisory services offered through Brookstone Capital Management, a registered investment advisor.
Fiduciary duty extends solely to investment advisory advice and does not extend to other activities such as insurance or broker-dealer services. Advisory clients are charged a quarterly fee for assets under management, while insurance products pay a commission, which may result in a conflict of interest regarding compensation.